Hello students. This is a new video that I'm adding that connects back to our August 29th class that just gives a little bit deeper of a breakdown into the very basics of RStudio, what each kind of component part is, how to start a project, all the stuff that we did on August 29th in class, but that might be helpful to have a little sort of refresher on the video. As a reminder, our class is not an R-based class. We primarily do our work in ArcGIS Pro, but we do play around with R for tidycensus, and we'll do some sort of basic mapping in it throughout the semester. So I figured it might be helpful to have just kind of a video you can return to for some of the basics. So if you want to follow along here, open RStudio. You should already have that in R downloaded. Yours will look a little different. I was just sort of playing around, before this video. So, mine looks different, but in a moment we're going to start a project together and we'll all be on the same page. Other thing is, if you want to follow along with this video, the data we worked through on August 29th in class, I'm going to primarily be using the stuff that's in these two folders, script data for R. It's got a couple things in it. Ignore this kind of copy. It was something I made. But the other three you should have. And then this thing that says shape for R is what we're going to be playing with. All right, so first thing I want everyone to do, if you're going to follow along, is I want you to come up here where it says the plus, and I want you to create a project. Until you become confident and comfortable with R, and hell, even when you do, I'm really going to recommend that we always create projects. They're just a really handy, easy, tidy way to organize all of your files associated with R. And in particular, what they're going to help you with is ensuring that things you create from R, because that's a lot of what we'll use it for in this class, is interacting with the census through tidycensus, grabbing data, bringing it in as a table or a shapefile so we can model it in Pro. It's really helpful to be able to understand kind of where that data is going, which is why I really like to create a project here. So first thing you want to do is you want to come in here. We're going to do sort of a new project here, and we're going to come here and create a new directory as a way to sort of start it. It's going to give you a couple options here. You don't have to worry about any of this other stuff. An R package is like a block of code, that you would be writing well above our class. None of this really matters for our purposes down here. What we really want to focus on is a new project. Keep following it until you get here. When you get to this point, you're going to be asked to create a directory name, and then you're going to be asked to create it as a subdirectory. I cannot stress enough how helpful this will make your life in this class and using R. If you have a consistent place where your R projects are stored, where you can access it, this will help you bring data into ArcGIS Pro, not get lost, for your R stuff. So I highly encourage you, wherever your desktop or your core, folder for engaging with information is, maybe create like I went to browse and I went to new folder a long time ago and created something called R projects. You can do the same, and then we'll, make an actual project name here, and we'll call this sort of, August 29th demo. And really all we're doing here is kind of creating essentially like a directory where to start, everything that we create is going to be saved into, and, as a rule, where we can easily pull things out of. So when we did this, there's really three big screens you're going to see in RStudio. And I'm going to walk through, each of them, and then we'll find our way back to this main one at the end. But just to start here, this is your console. Your console, think about it as like, this is where R is going to show you the results of the different codes that you are running. You absolutely can blah, 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 start to type stuff here and run code on the fly. But until you get comfortable with that, and especially in our class, we're always going to have scripts that you can load and run. And that's really helpful, that you don't need to feel like you have to be rewriting or redrafting code on the fly every single time. But the console's still critical, because even when you're running code from a script that you load, this is still going to tell you if there's issues, if there's things for you to be aware of, so on and so forth. So the upper right here, the thing that says Environment History Connections Tutorial, this is called the Workspace pane. And really, I think about this as like when I was learning R, as a way that's helping you interact with different data sets and data objects that you create in R. Environments is what's most important, so we're going to finish with that in the end. But just so you get a sense, history is going to be a record of everything you do. We haven't really done anything yet, so it's blank, but once we start doing things, maybe we'll go back. Connections well beyond our scope. This is any external data connections you're connecting to. Tutorial or sort of packages if you want to be able to run and learn. Certainly students who want to take the extra mile beyond our class head there. But the most important thing is going to be environments. Environments is really where all of the objects you're creating in R. And in the early days, you just think of objects as like tables, right? Databases, geographic shapes. That's the main thing we're going to see that's showing up here. This is where they're going to be stored as long as you're working in that R session. One of the best ways, I think, to really start this is actually, let's bring one in that we're going to need for a script. So I want you to come up where it says import data set. We're going to bring in something from a text CSV file. You can sort of navigate to wherever you stored the video or the data from the video. Go to scripts data for R, and you'll see this thing called satisfaction, CSV, it's comma separated value. Hit OK. You don't need to worry about any of this. It's just essentially asking you how the CSV is structured. Import it, and you're going to see two things. Something's automatically going to pop up here that I'm going to delete for now. And you got something in here called satisfaction. It's got 132 objects and 3 variables. Think about that like 132 rows and 3 columns. So if I click on it again, I can see what I've actually loaded here is something I prepped for us that is a database that shows you every country, and it shows you its gross domestic product here, and then a rating between 0 and 10 of the country's satisfaction. So we're going to use this just to kind of quickly demo, a very basic graph that would show the relationship between, income and GDP and sort of how happy a country might be. So that's here, and it's critical that it's here because when we run scripts, we now only need to sort of type in the word, and you'll see this a little later when we load one. We only need to type in something that says satisfaction. And by doing that, it's going to know that this is what it's trying to find, right? Because we've loaded it in here. It's not a CSV that we're reading from a different part of our computer. We've loaded it into our session. And because of that, anything you create here is only going to be here for as long as your R session is running. So if you get out of RStudio, which typically closes an R session, all of these would disappear and you would need to reload them. So a good thing to consistently do, a good way to sort of obviate against this is if you've created a bunch of data sets or objects, you can always save this workspace. I'm going to actually save it directly in the project folder, and I'll show you why in a second. And I'm going to call it my workspace. It's going to be on my workspace R data. And you'll see right by doing that, it loaded something down here. So this is our first indication that whenever we update things that are in the project folder we created, August 29th demo, whenever we load things into there, they immediately show down here, and that's going to be helpful for us later. So I want you to actually X out of RStudio. And the next thing I want you to do is navigate to wherever you're storing your projects. So we'll come in. Oops, that's the wrong one. That is also the wrong one. There we go. Navigate to wherever you're storing your R projects and double click on the R project. This is how you sort of open an existing project. You can click directly from it. Everything opens back up, but just like I was saying, all that environment that I created, satisfaction, it's gone. But the cool thing is, right, I can always reload it. I could come here to open, or and load a workspace, or I could just literally click here, hit yes, and bing bada boom, there it is. It's coming back to me. That satisfaction that I had earlier that I could run with. I can click on it. Awesome. So that's cool. We're going to sort of use that in a second. But come here to history, and now you can see that we've been doing things. We haven't even typed any code, and it's still telling us all that we've done, right? We've clicked, we went to import data set, which typed a script for us that it was going to like read that CSV and load it. We clicked on it, which is like we viewed it, so that's why it came as view. We saved the workspace, which is why it's a saved image, and then we loaded it by clicking on it. So it's almost like these clicks that we did. RStudio is translating it into code for us, so we don't have to type it, which is pretty darn cool. Okay, so let's sort of pivot now down here to a really, really critical component part of RStudio, which is your utility pane. So this, to me, I think of this to help my brain as like my working directory. When I created this project, I created a folder where things are going to save to, where I can easily organize and drag things from. That's what you've essentially built here. There's a couple of different tabs, naturally that we can sort of play with here. Files is what we're going to play with the most. I'm going to probably pause or stop this video in the next minute or two so it's not too long, and load a second one where we'll actually start engaging with each of these. But for now, think about files as the place where things are going to save to, or even in some instances like we did with my workspace, where we're going to click on and actually sort of open them to be able to view. Plots we're going to get to sort of in a little bit. This is where if we're actually sort of drawing scatter plots or things we want to visualize our data, or even sort of show stuff on a map, this is where it's going to show up to us. Nothing to sort of be mindful of yet. Packages is a really critical concept, that we're going to sort of view quick. I'm going to sort of maybe end the video, by viewing that. And then, when we start the next video, we'll sort of talk through it a little bit more. But packages can be thought of as almost like library books, or different documents of code that have a bunch of scripts or functions associated with them that we can call in RStudio to actually run more complex functions. So this is going to be sort of an important thing we come back to. Help is exactly what you do. It's a place where you can kind of find and type any topic you want. I'll tell you what it does. And viewer and presentation are kind of beyond the scope of our class here, but this is really where if you're creating HTML markdowns or presentations, this is where you would draft them. So last thing I want you to do to kind of end this video, I want you to come here quickly to files. And I want you to see that you can engage this just like a regular desktop. Like I'm in my project now, but I could actually go to my desktop and I could navigate to where I'm storing data for today. And I could go to that script file and I could see these two scripts, package installs and playing with R. And the cool thing is I could click them. And by clicking them, suddenly I'm actually opening the code above console to be able to run. So that's something really cool, that you don't have to have the code you want to run stored in your project file. You can navigate to it here. You could even come here and open it with a folder here up at the top of the screen. Oops. Find sort of the code and it would open as well. That's really neat. But for an organizational purposes, sometimes I think it's helpful. Maybe I'll select both of them. You have this cool little thing here where it says more. You could select them and say copy to. Oh, no, don't do it twice. All right, so let's start with package installs. We'll come here and we'll say more. We'll say copy to. And I can actually find my project folder, August 29th demo, and I'll copy it here. It's going to make a copy. I'll do the same thing with playing with R. Copy to. Find the R project. And the cool thing here with files is anytime you click on this little R here, it takes you back to the project directory. There they are. Now I have copies that are in here. Now I can click on them. I can easily open them. The same result, but some people just sort of prefer that as a way to organize. Now I'm going to pause right here and stop this video, and we'll pick right back up with opening these back up again and actually starting to run some scripts and see what occurs.